This is a video from ItsSenpai, and he has a bit of a thing going on with Kuro needs to save these characters. Knowing that he's making some good critiques for the game, I wanted to take the opportunity to go ahead, dive into it, and prove that when it comes to Wuthering Waves, I'm not a content creator that's going into it trying to shut down every single critique possible. I'm a content creator that can identify when I smell some bullshit in the critiques. Then we can give an honest take on his opinion and maybe some of the solutions that he's trying to provide. Let's take a look.
Shielders are often considered vital assets for protecting your team from damage in Wuthering Waves. However, there is a fundamental flaw in the way shields work in this game, and that is shielding does not provide interruption to resistance or anti-interruption. This means that while your characters are protected from taking damage, they can still get interrupted, knocked back, or otherwise disrupted during combat. In this video, we're going to break down why this design choice matters, how it impacts gameplay, how it could drastically improve existing characters in the game, and how it affects characters like Zhengzin and Taoqi, whose primary role is to provide shields for your team. But before we begin, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button to help support the channel, because these kind of videos take me a long time to make.
So I think one of the main points that he's talking about is interruption resistance and how its lack of presence on shielders like Taoqi and Zhengzin might be an issue in regards to their viability. And so I'm imagining that the discussion is going to focus on adding those features into their kit to give them more use cases across content. A bit more of like a reward for the extended field time that they require relative to other characters to actually activate those shields.
Broken abilities to have in Wuthering Waves is anti-interruption, and I know some of you guys will fight me on this in the comment section. There is a good reason why buffs in general have a duration in which it can be used, due to the simple fact that it's too powerful for you to have it permanently. So having the ability to do damage freely throughout the buff duration is one of the most overpowered abilities to have, which is where anti-interruption comes in. Characters like Jiyan and Zhang Liao have anti-interruption built into their kit, which makes them undoubtedly two of the most satisfying characters to play with in the game.
This is a little bit interesting. You make some interesting points in here, in that they're able to basically continue their attack animations regardless of whether or not they're getting hit. But you'll quickly find out in tower content, you will be able to tank like 3 hits with a regular healer, and then you will get your ass wiped if you just don't dodge at all, even if you're playing Zhang Liao and Jiyan. Zhang Liao also has a time slow with the interruption, so he's a lot more safe regardless because the enemy literally just attacks less.
Because you can intentionally tank some incoming damage without necessarily dodging them, which increases the damage that you can dish out within a short period of time. Healers like Verena and Showkeeper also have insane passive abilities that provides a lot of healing to the active character, which pairs well with Jiyan and Zhang Liao's inbuilt anti-interruption, making it easy for more casual players to turn their brain off once in a while in the Tower of Adversity. But this is where
So one thing that he didn't mention in regards to those revive abilities is that their cooldown, I believe, does not reset between tower runs. And so just keep that in mind. This is on a 10-minute cooldown and it doesn't reset on tower runs, so it's just not something you can spam every single run.
Some of you guys might argue that Jiyan and Zhang Liao are 5-star limited characters, so having anti-interruption is normal, which makes sense because it establishes the fact that anti-interruption is more like an expensive ability to have due to the comfort it provides, so top-tier damage dealers like Camellia and Jinshi cannot have it built into their kit.
Well, that's the thing, buddy. It says it's not in their kit, guys, but Jinxi and Chang Li do have interruption resistance. They have hyper armor built into several abilities across their rotation. For example, Jinxi in Incarnation mode, she will sometimes just straight up tank hits, like some pretty big ones, while she's building up to that enhanced skill. It's something that's not listed in their kits, but a lot of attacks and animations have hyper armor. It's probably some research. ItsSenpai, I think I think that's something that you could look into in regards to like hyper armor and how it interacts with character kits, but Jinxi and Chang Li definitely do have it.
On top of the absurd amount of damage that they can do. But here's the thing that is difficult for me to wrap my head around. Zhengzin is a 5-star character whose Forte Circuit deals decent damage and provides you with a very thick shield. The thickness only has to do with how much damage it can absorb, but it doesn't provide anti-interruption, which makes it somewhat useless in the Tower of Adversity, where you have a few minutes to eliminate the enemies, so damage per second is what actually matters. If you consider the level of effort that you have to put in to get Zhang Xin's shield and not gain anti-interruption, it reduces its value if your main focus is to survive in the Tower.
So here's my counterpoint to that. He's saying that without the interruption resistance, there isn't necessarily a reason to spend all of this time building up the shield. However, my counterpoint to that is if you already are using a character like Jian or Zhang Liao, that shield essentially, even if it doesn't have built-in interruption resistance, allows you to repeatedly tank the hits. More hits than you would have been able to tank than with a healer on the team. And so it's almost like shields have a big synergy with interruption resistance itself, in that you can just keep doing that longer without needing to activate Shorekeeper's passive, or without needing to wipe and reset because you just tanked 5 boss hits from a TOA thing.
Of adversity, because it becomes a trade-off of wasting time through knockback animations while having the shield with a high survival chance, which is not the main focus of the Tower of Adversity. At S0, Zhang Xin has a tough time generating Forte stacks to use her Forte circuit, but even after getting full Forte stacks, it takes about 6 seconds to generate a full shield, which drastically increases her on-field time, but her S1 adds some quality of life changes to her kit, which makes her gain full Forte stacks from basic attacks after an intro skill. But if you don't have her S1, she's still usable if you're only interested in her buffing capabilities. You just need to give her about 160 energy region to spam her liberation every rotation and give her 2 intro skills, one from your DPS.
Guys, his baseline gameplay is quite good. He has pretty crispy rotations with the Zhang Liao team, right? He's got Baizhi, Jian Xin, and Zhang Liao. His rotations are good.
You
they're
just
very
need
fast
to give her
and they're
about
very like tight.
160 energy region to spam her liberation every rotation and give her 2 intro skills, one from your...
He's using double intros on Zhang Liao when you normally wouldn't, because he has an energy, he has a resonance energy problem. That's why he's using them.
And give her 2 intro skills.
Typically, you want to use single intros on all of your teams, because that means that you're feeding more concerto into the sub DPS, which is Jian Xin in this case, to make them rotate faster. And by feeding Zhang Liao all of these ones, he's instead losing efficiency on his sub DPS's rotation here to get more resonance energy. And we're still seeing that even with double intro, he's not even close to his liberation yet.
One from your DPS and another one from your healer to help with concerto energy
He's
regeneration.
gonna cast it and do you see how he waited until it was built up and he was just spamming it immediately? That's why he's using double intros.
Consider how much time and effort that you have to put in to generate this thick shield. It makes more sense for it to have at least some level of anti-interruption, but sadly it does not. And I would really appreciate it if Kuro Games can at least add this to her kit, because if I'm being honest, Zhang Xin has a special place in my heart. But even if she does not get any buffs or rework, she has the ability to act as a healer, which is tied to her shield. So maintaining the shield by dodging attacks still provides your active character with healing, so she's not in a terrible place at the current state of the game like Taoqi. Taoqi has a similar problem.
Okay, so when it comes to Jian Xin and like all of her mechanics, right? A lot of additional field time required to activate the shield, but it does have like some healing benefits. She also has pretty good buffing abilities as well, and having a little bit of interruption as sort of like the cream on the crop would synergize with a character like Kalchara, would let you be in that sort of like tank mindset and just sort of ignore enemy attacks.
Where the shields that she generates either from her Forte or Resonance skill does not have any interruption to resistance or anti-interruption. To generate more shields, you need to use a strategic parry with a heavy attack, Resonance skill, or intro skill, which consume her Forte stacks to perform timed counters. This can be difficult for the average player who don't want to take the game too seriously, and generating her Forte stacks either requires her to be on field to perform her 5th basic attack to consume the shields created by her Resonance skill, or when her shield breaks while it's on any active character in the team. But the thing is, properly generating shields using strategic parry is not the problem, because players like myself can always figure out optimal rotations to come up with the best results. But going through all that trouble just to get knocked back and waste time
ItsSenpai, the thing with Taoqi is that she can simply use an intro skill and she'll gain all 3 strategic parries. She intro skills and then just uses all of them, right? You don't have to overcomplicate it this much in her rotations by like, you know, charging it up with the 5th basic attack or even using strategic parries in the first place. You can quite literally just intro skill with her at any point in the rotation. She'll gain 3 full forte charges, you intro skill and then immediately attack 3 times and you'll consume all of her forte. That's the most optimal way to do it, and it's not very complicated. You intro skill and then left click 3 times. We'll pause the video real quick and I'll show you guys. It's actually very easy. It's not hard at all. So I'm just going to straight up just intro right onto Taoqi. Look, I'm full forte. And that's it. I'll do it again. She has 0 forte stacks, right? She has absolutely none. She has no forte stacks. We can confirm that. I'm gonna intro again. She has 3. 1, 2, 3. That's literally it. So do we kind of see like where maybe the like representation of Taoqi wasn't as faithful to what her potential is? I think that's a very fair critique for ItsSenpai and the video, because I don't think he showed a single bit of footage with that interaction while he was explaining how difficult her shield is to activate.
But going through all that trouble just to get knocked back and waste time in the Tower of Adversity is not worth it in my opinion. However, the shields provided by Taoqi and Zhang Xin does have their benefits when doing your holograms, but if you're good at the game, you won't feel the need to use them just to provide shielding for your characters. The Bellborn Geoshalon shield also offers no anti-interruption, but my gamer brain still wanted to find out if we can at least gain some level of anti-interruption if we combine that with Zhang Xin or Taoqi's shield, but sadly, you will still get thrown around by the bosses in the game, even if you pair them together. But how does this affect the gameplay of some characters that we currently have in the game?
He brings up an interesting point. I think it would be cool if you were able to stack up interruption resistance. Like having the Bellborn plus a shielder shield active would actually give you some type of hyper armor. At least for like 1, 2, or 3 hits. That could be a really interesting thing. But this is the flip side, ladies and gentlemen. When you are able to tank hits, you are kind of incentivized not to dodge. And as we all know, dodging does stuff like generate concerto energy, give you access to dodge counters, and essentially, in a lot of situations, speed up your rotation. And so, in a sense, not having the shields provide those benefits means that you have to interact with the game's mechanics to play well. And on the flip side, that does, in some ways, make it feel like shields don't have a purpose beyond holograms once you get better and better and better at the game. So it's kind of like the flip side of like skill investment versus like comfort. The better you are at the game, the less useful shields are.
Calculator's dodge counter does not recover 80 forte stacks for him.
Okay, that is true, but who's playing this character anyways, buddy? We all have Zhang Liao, just put him in the bin. Put the fries in the bag, little calc.
To use his Death Messenger in his liberation, like how the Pro Max version does. Having a thick
The Pro Max version, my fucking man. ItsSenpai, my fucking man.
For him to use his Death Messenger in his liberation, like
The
how
Pro
the Pro
Max
Max
version
version does. Having a thick shield with some level of anti-interruption will make his kit more enjoyable for casual players who would like to use him but they cannot because they don't want a sweaty experience of perfectly timing your dashes after a basic attack, which help generate more forte stacks or killing intense stacks to be specific in his liberation state. So having some comfort while having anti-interruption from shields is all that's needed to prevent his basic attacks, which is the primary source of generating forte stacks, to not get interrupted. Characters like Chisha can also benefit from anti-interruption because when her Daka states get interrupted.
Yep, this is why I don't like playing her, because she feels like she needs so much time to like unload those bullets to make her inherent actually work, that any attack from an enemy, any dodge you have to do, just feels like it's interrupting a lot of her playstyle and making stuff a bit clunky.
It is difficult to use it again if her skill is on cooldown. Camellia can also use anti-interruption because her ephemeral forte skill, which
Just buy it, little bro. What are you talking about? Just buy her anti-interruption.
Ephemeral Forte skill, which contributes to the majority of her damage, can actually get interrupted after testing things out. The only character in the game that provides anti-interruption is Yuan-Wu when he activates his liberation, but Yuan-Wu is in a really bad spot right now because his supportive utility is quite limited, so he's not viable in team building except a low-budget Jinxie team featuring Taoqi, where he can act as the healer and provide some coordinated attacks. His outro buff is decent at melting vibrational strength of bosses, but vibrational strength depletion is directly tied to how much damage you can do to the enemy, so the more damage you do, the faster the vibrational strength decreases.
Is that true? Is that true, guys? I actually don't know if your vibration strength is tied to the actual damage that the attack does. That is true. I do believe that probably one of the more efficient ways to deal vibration strength damage is intro skills, because intro skills are a fantastic way to actually break down the bar. I wonder if he's going to mention that.
Making his outro skill not very useful at the current state of the game if your characters are well built with super cracked echo substats, which limits his viability in your team building. Now, this begs the question.
ItsSenpai, I think it would have been valuable to mention the impact that using an intro skill actually has on stagger bars, because Verena, for example, is, in my opinion, one of the best stagger bar breakers in the game, because her ability to generate concertos so quick, just off the rip, generate a full concerto bar and give a teammate access to intro skills, makes her one of the best stagger bar breakers in the game. It's actually a huge advantage that she has over Shorekeeper, who takes a lot longer to do it, does it far less in most rotations, and as a result, right, you're not going to get as much of that stagger bar damage relative to slotting a team like Verena in. And so for people, right, that are struggling with bosses like the Fallacy of No Return, that's an excellent opportunity there.
Is Kuro Games doing this on purpose? And my answer to that is absolutely. It seems that anti-interruption is part of the power budget that game developers use when creating characters. What this essentially means is that there's a certain number of points that goes into specific abilities that a character might have at S0. Take Jian for example. If you have 100.
So what he's saying is that power budget of interruption resistance is built into the character's kit. I think what he's implying is that a character is weaker in other areas due to the fact that they have that built-in interruption resistance.
Points to spare to create Jian, and we can only distribute those points to abilities like anti-interruption, crowd control, and damage. Jian's power budget will look something like this, with 50 in damage, 20 in anti-interruption, and 30 in crowd control. But if we take a character like Jin,
well, I think that if you use Double Dragon correctly, again, his damage is extremely comparable to Jinxie and Camellia. I honestly think Jian is over budgeted when you play him with the cancels. There's no other character that groups as well as he does, and when he has the damage of Camellia and Jinxie while having that grouping, it's a little nuts.
For example, her power budget will look something like this, with 90 in damage, 10 in crowd control, and 0 in
ItsSenpai, I would highly suggest you reevaluate this calculation a little bit and test out Jinxie's hyper armor in her incarnation state. She can tank quite a few attacks, like big attacks. I have had the Impermanence Heron actually drop down on me, one of its bigger stagger moves that is almost guaranteed to stagger you, and Jinxie just tanked it completely because she was in one of her incarnation attack animations. So again, there are a lot of unlisted hyper armors in character kits. A lot of unlisted hyper armors. And I think that would be something interesting to maybe make a video to examine and test out a little bit.
In anti-interruption. This is why Jinxi's damage is higher than Jian as far as damage per second is concerned with their recommended teammate. But Jian is undoubtedly more comfortable to play with because of the insane crowd control and anti-interruption. How Kuro Games can work around this to mitigate the
Wait, he's doing the double dragon tech properly here. This is proper use of it.
How Kuro Games can work around this to mitigate the problem of making anti-interruption exclusive on specific characters is to release a healer that has a passive skill which grants anti-interruption so that that particular character can be viable in every team comp if anti-interruption is what you need for any main damage dealer that you would like to play with. Let's hope that we'll get such characters when Renesita gets officially released. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and consider liking the video and subscribing to help support the channel. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.
Overall, I think that this video was great. Obviously I had some would say that there are like nitpicky critiques in regards to, like, you know, me pointing out some issues with the b-roll, just highlighting some stuff about the gameplay. But I think there were a couple of big misses, specifically when it came to Taoqi, especially when it came to her intro skill and how easy it is to actually trigger her shield. You just intro and then left click 3 times and you have her full shield. Another thing is when it comes to the whole Jian, the power allocation thing. Yeah, you know, being able to explore all the different possibilities when it comes to interruption resistance built into characters' kits, even if it's not listed out in the actual description. Yeah, definitely some stuff to think about. I think that this is a great topic that you're diving into. I think your overall critiques make sense in regards to, you know, especially shielding and like the whole mechanics of how it's not as useful as it potentially could be. The better you get at the game and the more you're using, you know, mechanics like dodging. Overall, great video. Think you did a great job. And I think, you know, some innovation on the shielding, some innovation on characters like Taoqi and Jianxin is definitely something that Kuro can potentially cook up a bit more, maybe with a new Sonata set. But with that, hope you all enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. Peace out.